Hey everybody, this is Mr. Williams, here to talk to you about chapters 9 and 10 of the Pigman by Paul Zindel. These two chapters have important scenes for a few reasons. We have a few new conflicts, and we have some resolutions as well, so let's take a look at these chapters. I said this in the Oath video, but the same goes for chapter 9, which may be the shortest chapter in the story, and that's that brevity or shortness does not equal unimportance. Often these short chapters have a lot of interesting details that really lead the story in a new direction. One important note for this chapter is that the end is getting closer. This scene happens right before Thanksgiving, the scene where Norton meets John in the cemetery, and we know the oath is written on April 15th. And although we don't know when Mr. Pigman is out of their lives, we know it has to be by April 15th. We should also note here that with Norton and John, we have a little bit more of a conflict increase, and it increases quite drastically. Remember that Norton and John hated each other already, but now we have an interesting scene where the threatening of the Pigman is like threatening John's parent. So that's going to make this conflict between them even worse, and that's worth noting for future chapters. Adding to this conflict is a significant cliffhanger at the end of this chapter. When John's threat or potential threat for Norton happens, it leads the reader to make some interesting predictions. So just in case you forgot, John says, "That was the Pigman, and I knew I'd kill Norton if he tried to hurt the old man." So this threat of violence towards Norton could be interesting to us. The chapter itself is quite serious, and that threat of death connects us in a way to the graveyard in John's views. This is the second serious scene in the graveyard, so we're going to start thinking of this location as a serious situation. Graveyards are always serious, and it's interesting to see that John, when he's here, has some serious moments, even though it's a place where he goes drinking and hangs out. And in case you forgot, we shouldn't be surprised there's more conflict between Norton and John, because in Chapter 5, John hinted that Norton finally caused all the trouble, so we should be aware that Norton is going to be a part of the story, even if he's not always in every chapter. Now in Chapter 10, the conflict continues to develop. First of all, once again, the end of the story is getting closer. I feel it's intentional that in both chapters you have a reference to time. This chapter goes from the Christmas holidays to January, so once again, not many months left in the story. For Lorraine, we learn a little bit more about her family as well. We learn a little bit about the father's background. He cheated on the mother, which is why Lorraine's mom doesn't trust boys and why Lorraine is not allowed to hang out with boys. And I also want to note that Lorraine's still lying to her mother about her whereabouts. And this is important along with that idea of not trusting boys, because the two people she's hanging out with are boys. One of them's her age, one of them's significantly older, and that's going to cause Lorraine's mom concern if she finds out about that. Now, while we can't talk about everything in this chapter, we do have to talk about some of the advanced inferences you have to make and the truth that's finally revealed between the characters. In this chapter, while Mr. Pigman is upset that Bobo's sick, he's actually more upset that it's Angelo's and Concetta's wedding anniversary. So all this sadness we're seeing is actually for a second element, a more important element, which is that he's missing his wife. Now this truth is finally revealed between the characters because John and Lorraine reveal that they aren't charity workers. They tell him he's really important to them and that they don't want any lies in between them. And Mr. Pigman takes this olive branch and accepts that his wife is finally dead. Now this is an interesting scene because when we're talking about the scene, this isn't a conflict development as much as a conflict resolution. We talked about in Chapter 7 how they never dealt with the fact that they knew that Concetta was no longer with us, but it is important now that they are, and that conflict between them is resolved. Their friendship will be stronger because of it. And speaking of things we have to talk about the end of this chapter. It's another cliffhanger, and it's a sad one at that. So we should be worried about the final event, which is that Mr. Pigman falls holding his chest. It's most likely some type of heart situation, and since Mr. Pigman is older, that's a serious concern. It would always be a serious concern, but especially because he's older. So, if you didn't notice, this event was foreshadowed for a few paragraphs. When Lorraine's looking at him and she knows all these symptoms, she's noticing the red face, he's having trouble breathing, all these items and all the events he had done before should have connected us to the fact that this was going to happen a little bit before it did. And when we're looking at this event, it's another major cliffhanger. We have to go to Chapter 11 to wait and see what happens. And this cliffhanger, this is the fifth one in 8 chapters, but that's also important because it combines with previous cliffhangers. The idea is that they didn't murder him, or complicating everything. We need to be worried about what this could mean for Mr. Pigman in the long run. And while we did have some conflict resolution in this chapter, this sickness or illness or whatever you want to call it for Mr. Pigman is going to add to the conflict again. The age gap between the characters, Mr. Pigman's health, these are all conflicts we have to watch for in future chapters. Now as for the game they play, we will play that in another block, a skills block, or maybe we've already actually played it. But I do want to note that their outcome, choosing the boatman, John and Lorraine choose the boatman, and Mr. Pigman tells them that shows that magic is the most important thing in their lives. And considering this unlikely friendship for these characters, Mr. Pigman, John, and Lorraine are all outcasts. It's very important that that is part of their lives and that they're aware that this is a kind of a special situation. It's definitely not something everyone should go out and try to find. John and Lorraine have gained a parent figure, and Mr. Pignotti has gained a friendship to combat his loneliness. And that's all I'm going to say today. If you have any questions, always contact me, and thanks for watching.